Hello and welcome back to the Irish Tennis Updates podcast. This episode, I've been chatting to Stuart Haxell. Stuart is one of Ireland's top blind tennis players. He is currently ranked number one in the B1 category. We talk all about how Stuart got into the sport, his experiences competing, both in the past and also looking ahead to future competitions. We discuss the state of blind, of visually impaired tennis in Ireland, and also globally looking at the Paralympics and the possibility of blind tennis becoming a Paralympic sport that Stuart would no doubt be competing at if that does, or when slash if that does eventually happen. I think this is a part of the sport that maybe we don't talk about enough or people don't know a lot about. So it is brilliant to hear all about it and to hear about it from someone like Stuart, who is so involved and has been so successful in blind tennis. I think you will enjoy this episode and enjoy hearing about blind tennis and Stuart's experiences. So without further ado, here is Stuart Haxell.
All right, Stuart. A big thanks for coming on to for a chat today. How are things with you?
Oh, they're very good as they can be. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Christmas and hopefully more tennis next year.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just want to jump in and kind of look at, obviously the last couple of years have been challenging for everyone. But how has your tennis experience been the last couple of years, when probably there's been times when you can't play and so on? But how's the last kind of while been for you?
Well, this last year has been better than 2020. Like 2020, I didn't get to play much tennis at all. But this year, I got to dip in and out a few times to play tennis a lot more often, probably because the lockdowns were lifted at certain points and stuff like that. So I got a chance to get back into it, thankfully. No competitions, unfortunately, this year or the year before. But
yes,
take the good with the bad.
Yes, yeah. At least you can be playing and still kind of working on things, and
absolutely,
even if it's not the competitions just yet, unfortunately.
Absolutely, you can always improve, but it's never until a competition where you actually can really see how much you've improved.
Of course. So you'll be keen to get back to those whenever you can. But it sounds like you were saying there,
absolutely.
It might be a while until you can. Do you have any idea of when there might be within Ireland or even then international?
In Ireland, there hopefully will be some competitions next year. But unfortunately, international world championships have been cancelled in 2022, unfortunately.
Okay.
There are competitions internally in other countries that are possibilities that I could go to.
Okay.
Just have to arrange traveling and stuff like that. But
yes, is that something you've done before? Kind of gone abroad for a tournament like that?
I went abroad to Benidorm for the Worlds in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, but the year before that they were in Dublin, so I didn't need to travel internationally.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
which obviously must have been it must be handy and obviously a nice kind of weekender for yourself on the team.
Yeah. They were, especially since it was my first competition that I'd ever really taken part in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'd only been playing tennis for maybe about 5 or 6 months at that point before I qualified and was able to go through to the World Championships.
It didn't take long.
I honestly didn't expect that.
Yeah, it didn't take long for you to get pretty good then, and you started getting into the competitions.
Yeah. I really do love the sport. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear. And you're saying about next year, kind of some of the tournaments within Ireland. So, like, how do they look? Like, how big are the draws for those? How do they kind of work when you play tournaments like that?
Well, the blind tennis tournaments are split into different categories depending on your level of sight. So that reduces the number of participants that will be in your category.
Yeah.
For me, I will be in the B1 category. That's the category with the lowest level of sight. And in that category, we all wear blindfolds because any small bit of sight can really be game changer. Like some people might just see just in front of their face and some people mightn't see at all. And that could impact how you would detect the ball and stuff like that. So just for fairness reasons, everyone in that category wears blindfolds.
Yeah.
And it's even split even further then with the men's and women's category. So there's even fewer fewer players once you break that down. And last time I was playing, there wasn't very many men in my category. So it might have been maybe down to maybe 2 or 3 men in that category, but they combined the women and men's at that point just to kind of boost numbers. So hopefully when there's more B1 male players, they'll divide the categories and we'll be able to have more people playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other categories have different things, like you get an extra bounce if you're in a lower category and stuff like that. But
I want to come on in a few minutes, kind of to look at some of maybe the rules like that and some bits like that. But just maybe now to jump in kind of to how you started into tennis, but even just how you kind of when you were younger, when you were a kid, like how were those years? I mean, it must have been very tough, and then kind of getting into sports. Like, just tell me a bit about that kind of time.
Oh God, yeah. In primary school and stuff like that, I was never the biggest fan of sports because it was just so hard for me to participate.
Yeah.
Always end up being the last one picked in the line and stuff like that, and just put him in the goals, he'll be fine. He'll block it with his head somehow.
So as you kind of got into sports, then how was that? So some sports
I kind of more got into sports coming up to the end of primary school and stuff like that. I started doing karate and stuff like that, and then going into secondary school, I started jiu-jitsu in transition year.
Okay.
And it just kind of snowballed a bit from there. I ended up doing a bit of tandem cycling and stuff like that, and I didn't end up starting tennis until I was in my last year of college.
Okay.
And only then, it was just kind of a sport that I could never have imagined being accessible. So it just was never on my radar. I'm never a big fan of really listening to sports on the radio or television or anything like that. It just never really interested me until I got the chance to try out tennis. Like the Sligo Sports Partnership just sent me an email asking whether I wanted to come down and try out tennis down in the IT here in Sligo.
Yeah.
And just the second I picked up the racket, just immediately I could tell the sport would work for me. And it's just kind of been up and up ever since then.
Yeah, so I guess was that around 2018 or so that you would have started?
It would be around the end of 2017, around that point, I think. Yeah. And the first tournament I took part in was in 2018.
Yeah,
that was it. That was the World Championships in Dublin.
Yes, which I actually I was there actually for one of those days. I remember watching it and it just being phenomenal and kind of all the different levels and
I didn't get too far, unfortunately, at that tournament.
Well, I guess it was on in your journey still. I mean, you're only very new to sport.
We took so much away from that tournament and how to improve.
Imagine.
Yeah, and what we were doing wrong with how we were like standing and listening to the ball and just in general, like we took so much away from that tournament.
Yeah. So how was the experience then next year? You mentioned that you played. I don't remember where you said it was, but you played the World Championships the next year. So how was that?
Yeah. Oh, the difference, like that was in Benidorm, and I won, and I played so much better that year.
Yeah.
And I was fairly nervous traveling abroad to a tournament in a different country. Like I was kind of wondering how it would work, because at least in Dublin, it was at least it was in the same country.
Yes.
Well, I very nearly got out of the group stages that year. So unfortunately, the person who tied with me in the group stages had bet me in his match, so he got to go forward to like the quarterfinals. Unfortunately,
just missed out.
Just by chance, unfortunately. But like even then, we were taking so much away from that.
Yeah,
and we got to meet so many new players and from so many different countries. It was fantastic being able to interact with so many different blind people with their like different circumstances and stuff like that, and different things that we had in common.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
Absolutely. And so is that pretty much the last time that you've got to compete internationally? You haven't had a chance since then, really?
Yes, unfortunately. In 2020 it was meant to be in northern Italy.
Okay.
And of course that's where the worst outbreak happened, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd already I'd already qualified for that,
Okay.
and we had got the team together for a few practice sessions, and I'd planned to like go to a few competitions, maybe in Britain and places like that. But
Yeah.
then the coronavirus happened, so
Yes,
yeah,
it made those plans a bit more tricky.
yeah, a bit more dubious. Yeah,
Yes. And just before we maybe go on to look at maybe kind of the future, maybe for yourself and kind of the sport more generally in Ireland, but just to look at, so you've mentioned kind of how the classifications are and kind of that you would be playing in the B1. I guess just for people who aren't really familiar much with VI tennis, how like
Yeah.
what are the rules, like what rules are different, or what would be different to watching VI tennis to watching kind of
well,
the tennis for fully sided players?
okay. Well, in general, the court is smaller. It's about the size of a badminton court.
Okay.
And the net, I think, is a bit lower, as far as I know. And you get a baseline that you can feel with your feet. So you're able to orientate yourself, no
Okay.
matter the level of sight you have. Other than that, the ball is different. That's what you're listening out for when you're playing blind tennis.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and it's a fair bit slower as well.
Right. Yes.
And depending on your category, you get 2 or 3 bounces before you have to hit. For B1,
Okay.
it's 3 bounces, and for
3. Okay.
B2s and up, it's 2 bounces.
Right.
So
And yeah.
other than that, the rules are fairly similar to normal tennis. Like the sets are same length and everything like that. So
Yeah. And what about your?
yeah,
Have you have a
big,
what racket do you use?
This is the racket I use. I think it's a 23 inch. I always
Okay.
get 23, yeah. 24
Okay. Perfect.
mixed up, yeah. So it's a bit smaller.
Yeah. So is
Yeah,
that the one you've always had that racket?
I've switched back and forward a few times. You can the racket lengths that are used range from 21 up to 25 inches. I think you're not allowed to go any higher. And I think that's mainly to do with the court size. It just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, and you can't go any bigger than that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, just kind of looking at, you've mentioned kind of some hopes to go into international tournaments is kind of on the hold for now, but how would you see that maybe in a couple of years when hopefully that will be back? I mean, how do you like what are your kind of maybe ambitions for your own kind of tennis career?
Well, I'm definitely hoping to go to a few more tournaments internationally when we get the chance.
Yeah.
And hopefully this sport will eventually become a Paralympic sport and, well, set those ambitions high, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll keep playing. I'll keep playing for as long as possible.
Yeah.
It's the best sport I've ever played in my life.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah, and I have to thank my fantastic coach, Jean, who's helped keep me interested in the sport. She's been fantastic as well.
Right. And yeah, I mean, just maybe to touch on kind of how the sport is in Ireland, and obviously you know there's a taster session, and like I do see more of those cropping up kind of on social media and things. I kind of see kind of Tennis Ireland maybe advertising a VI tennis session, people getting into the sport more, which is great. But how do you see?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
How do you see where it is now in Ireland, maybe compared to a few years ago, or how you might see it going in over the next few years?
The overall level of blind tennis in Ireland has significantly improved since when I started. There's been a fair few more clubs who have joined. I think Rosslare has a few new players. Galway has gotten their tennis club up and running. And there's clubs in Dundalk, and Belfast and Dublin were the originals.
Right.
And there's probably tennis clubs that are training new blind tennis players in other places in the country. There, I just haven't had the chance to meet them yet.
Yeah.
That's where the national tournaments are fantastic. You get to actually meet these new players and find out where they're training and stuff like that.
It must be so great to kind of get to know the people who are obviously having similar kind of experiences and getting to enjoy tennis as well.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, Yeah, and you're
Um,
able to
you know,
interact with them.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you mentioned earlier just about the kind of the Paralympics being obviously something
Yeah,
that the first step is it has to become a Paralympic sport, and then you can have your Paralympic success. But you,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
so I think I write something there. There's a certain number of countries that need to be playing it in order to become a Paralympic sport. So what is that?
It does. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. It
how
needs.
high is that number?
I think it needs at least 32, as far as I remember hearing.
Okay.
And I think there just might be a few rule tweaks that might need to happen.
Okay.
And other than that, that's as far as I know that needs to happen with it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Would you be
so
aware of,
hopefully,
is it
yeah.
close to that 32 number at all? Would you have any idea?
The numbers, as far as I remember hearing last, were in the 20s. So
Okay.
we're getting there.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. And some countries have started playing blind tennis since. So it could be even closer now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
fingers crossed. I can't remember where the Olympics are next time or the next couple of times, but hopefully something
Yeah.
in the next number of years. It'd be amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah. No,
If
Stuart.
we ever,
Yeah. Hopefully.
hopefully, that's right.
Yes, and obviously just a huge thanks again for talking. I think it's just fascinating to hear about kind of how the sport is, the experiences you've had in it. It's kind of amazing, and how the sport is growing around Ireland is great to hear. And I just want to ask you kind of a final question of what's your favorite thing about tennis?
My favorite thing about tennis in general, or blind tennis in particular, or
Well, you can interpret that however you want, and for yourself, yeah.
yeah. Well, for me, it's being able to have freedom on the court and not be like tied to someone else, like in other
Yeah.
sports, like for example, tandem cycling or athletics. You're either tethered to someone by a wristband, or you're on the back of a bike pedaling from behind.
Yeah.
Blind tennis, you're relying on your own senses and your own instincts. That's definitely the part of the sport that I find the most appealing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm able to rely on my own skills and my own knowledge.
Yeah, and so what benefits do you think that it's had for you since you've started up tennis? Do you think it's kind of helped you in other areas?
It's boosted my confidence significantly. Like,
Yeah.
I've proved it. It's helped prove to myself that I'm able to manage things on my own. I don't need to rely on other people to be able to succeed in anything that I try.
Yeah.
Like, even in school or in college or stuff like that, I had people around helping me in some way or some form.
Yeah.
But like, blind tennis, I feel, has been the area where I've been able to show to myself that I can rely on my own skills
Yeah.
to succeed.
Yeah. Stuart, I think we'll pretty much leave it there. I just want to say again a big thanks for coming on and for talking about kind of your journey in tennis. And I hope that you can get back to some competitions and international ones soon, and I'm sure you'll have some brilliant success. So I wish you the very best as soon as you can get back to those.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure. So a big thanks and happy Christmas.
A big thanks once again to Stuart for his time with this episode and for sharing all his thoughts and his experiences in the sport of tennis, and specifically blind tennis. I really think from hearing that it is just a brilliant thing to have in tennis, and something that I guess would be encouraged to get involved with if you do get the opportunity to be involved with blind tennis in any way. Big thanks for listening to this episode, and if you did enjoy it, please consider sharing it, liking it, leaving a comment or review. I'd appreciate that very much. Until next time, I've been Adam, and goodbye.